Good evening from beautiful Paris. We are live here with Marco Marinucci and Alberto Netti from ICC headquarters in Paris. Today is going to be the opening of the Scaleup Summit. This is the activities that we'll be hosting in the next few days. As you can see here in the slide, we already had our first bootcamp that happened last week. Meanwhile, we'll be having a number of what we call the open innovation, open executive views and interviews to all the thought leaders in particular with a focus of the French ecosystem. We'll be we'll see details in a bit. We'll also be hosting, as you can see here in the background, our Corporate Startup Stars 2021, and the details we'll tell in a second. Meanwhile, in a background that will happen in the next couple of weeks, we'll have all the matching sessions between the corporates and startups.
So this is the bootcamp that we are being organized last week. Has been the focus has been this year on entrepreneurship, and the goal is to organize a deep dive.
Okay.
Stay there.
The goal has been to organize a deep dive at the entrepreneurship concept and best practice. But now I think it's time to start speaking what we do, and specifically what has been the focus of Mind the Bridge activities this year.
Well, as a Mind the Bridge, we're an innovation advisory firm. We've been active for the last 15 years. We really sit at an intersection between corporates and startups. In our support of the corporates in the world, we do have coverage of all the steps that goes from the execution to the analysis of open innovation strategies. Here in the slide, you can see some examples of the actions of support that we have with some of the clients. As we mentioned before, it goes from really the initial measurement of how open innovation activities can become effective in the world of corporates, all the way to the support of some of those processes and programs. We are a global entity. Our active ecosystem is composed of, on one side, several thousand of scale-ups that we filter, we manage, and we support over the course of the year, as well as a large number of corporates that, meanwhile, we support in this matching. Also, as an active actor of innovation ecosystem, we also deal with all the major stakeholders, including investors and ecosystem partners, as we call them. We are by design agnostic in the verticals that we address. Actually, we think that cross-pollination between industries is one of the key elements when talking about open innovation. Our headquarters are in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco, in fact, but by nature of our activities, we're international. So as part of the bridging, typically also includes the support of internationalization and the filtering that is global by nature. In fact, in addition to our offices in Silicon Valley and in Los Angeles, we're very active in Europe, where we have a number of locations in Middle East as well, directly or through partners in Israel, in Kuwait. Last year, we just opened our first office in Asia, in Korea, in South Korea, in Seoul. In supporting open innovation, we benchmark what the trends of open innovation are. You can find online a number of interviews and reviews with some of the key leaders in the industries. Here is just an example of some of what we call demand chats. So the deep dives in interviews in the details of some of the implementation of open innovation measures from some of the key leaders in the industries. Last but not least, Corporate Startup Stars, again, as you see here in the back, as part of our benchmarking that we do on a yearly basis. This is the end of the year. This is when we gather all the information from the top corporates around the world, the Forbes 500 and Fortune 2000 companies. We do a deep analysis of all the activities of open innovation, and then we celebrate. We celebrate the best performers there. This is a video that will summarize what we've been doing in the last few years as a Corporate Startup Stars.
The Corporate Startup Stars Award celebration this year will happen next Thursday, December 16. It will be a live event when we will announce and unveil the top 50 best and most startup-friendly corporates across the globe. So we are really looking forward to that. It will be a full week of event to come to that point. But as sort of for spoiling a bit, what have been the outcomes of the activities of analysis and research that is behind the Corporate Startup Stars celebration and activities, I'd like to give you some sort of sneak peek into the report that will be released next week. It's called, based on our Mind the Bridge mantra, is evolve or be extinct, meaning that there is one way only for corporate, that is the one that you need to innovate. And so what we have seen is the open innovation is a multi-facet play that involves both internal actions, meaning regarding the structure, the plan and the processes that corporates need to put in play in order to be innovation enabled. And on the other hand, the initiative, the models, the action that are supposed to bring and produce results. And so this is the way we represent open innovation, and is also the way, the framework that you use to assess a large corporation, typically Fortune 500, Fortune 2000 company, while for assessing their ability to innovate. What we have learned, just to giving you the main piece of learning, the main highlights of our research that will be published next week, is first of all, unfortunately, there is no silver bullet talking about open innovation. And so the lessons learned for corporates that they really need to run at the same time multiple initiatives, multiple models, and because different goals requires different tools, and that's why they need to implement multiple initiatives at the same time. And the second main highlight is that anything that is done is per se nothing that can be maintained as it is, but needs to be continually evolved and modified. And that's why we consider and support and benchmark corporates to look at what the others are doing, particularly the best ones. And Corporate Startup Stars is a goldmine of best practice, in a way that corporates can at the same time continually adjust the models, the initiative, the action that have been taken and running in a way to continue to be up to date and not out of date. So just to give you the main trends that are happening, and then I leave it to reading the full report. It will be released, as mentioned, next week, next Thursday, in concurrence with our Corporate Startup Stars Award celebration. First of all, there is a growing trend that is corporates more and more moving and opening innovation out, because innovation antenna is the most thriving ecosystems Silicon Valley is number one, Israel is number two, but then more and more ecosystem across the globe, for example, Seoul in Korea, but many other locations becoming more and more attractive in producing innovation. And so corporates are putting innovation grounds, innovation booths on the ground. Secondly, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is another important pillar of the open innovation building. And so entrepreneurship program has a long history, but in the last few years, we have seen then continually evolved and modified. And so specifically, more and more corporates are redesigning them, moving them from HR initiative to deal flow producers. Corporate accelerators are definitely trending down. Most corporates are heavily restructuring or even terminating most of this program, while we see venture builder on the rise. And despite the model still is in infancy and there are different initiatives that are called venture builder, actually they are pursuing different goals and they are significantly differentiated from one for the another. The venture client, meaning enhancing a collaboration between startups and corporates, mostly the most mature one, what we call scale-ups, is becoming mainstream. It's the most effective way to produce innovation, focused mostly on Horizon 1, while for corporates are really looking at finding solution in the Horizon 2 and Horizon 3 territory, this corporate venture capital is the right tool. And actually the corporate venture capital are growing a lot. We see more and more corporate deploying even larger funds, but what we are seeing from the data is that is becoming a play when size matters. And so we're talking about 200 million plus funds in order to have a competitive play. And finally, M&A. On this side, US companies typically are still gorging on startups. Companies like the Google of the world are buying a startup a week, while in Europe, definitely the pace of a startup acquisition is still very, very, very limited. While in Asia, we are seeing that they're definitely increasing the M&A appetite. So this is just the main trends. I will leave to the report. And now, Marco, I think it's time to go to take a deeper look what we are planning to do here this month in Paris with our Scaleup Summit, and specifically also what is the Scaleup Summit are about.
Yeah, so this is one of the events in the umbrella of our Scaleup Summits. Scaleup Summits is our platform, global platforms, where we gather corporate innovation activities with solutions of scale-ups, the most interesting scale-ups around the world. This is something that we do in a recurrent way. Every few months, we're in different locations. This is just from this year in 2021. We started in MENA, then we moved to Europe, then to Asia and South Korea. We were in Silicon Valley in September, and this is the last event of 2021 as a European version of it. This is the program of what we're going to do in the next few days and during the week. What we started mentioning initially a little bit too early, but is a number of activities that happens as we normally do in the Scaleup Summit format. So we have a number of sessions that are typical interviews. We have open innovation boot camps, and as we were mentioning before, we do have the corporate startup stars. So in this case, end of the year also corresponds with the celebration of the best innovators in the industries. You can find online some of the Mind the Chats, as we call the interviews that we do to major stakeholders in the industry. Each summit, we tend to focus as much as possible also in the region that we are covering. So this time around, you're going to see some deep dives, in particular in European and in the French ecosystem. Summit agenda, this is what is happening today. In addition to the introduction of some of the data that will be shared also in the next few days, we're going to have a few panels in the next few minutes. We're going to talk about open innovation and some of the implementation of some of the corporates that are active participants in the summit. We'll have a review, an overview of the matching platform that we use in the background to schedule and match the meetings between corporates startups. And last but not least, we're going to have, as part of these deep dives into the French ecosystem, we're going to have the interview with one of the key partners also in this industry.
Yes, and I think just to warm up for the final Mind Chat that we'll have with Nicolas Briand, that is the former president of France Digital and currently is the chairman of Eura Technologies. I like to provide you with some data just to understand the progress that a country like France has been done in the past few years. And so just some data that might help us to appreciate the progress, because again, looking at Europe, one of the overall trend is that Europe is moving from what is called the early days of startups and scale-ups into something that is becoming more and more relevant. And this is the data that we put together with a dedicated focus on the French ecosystem, particularly on the French scale-up ecosystem. So you can find over here the number of scale-ups. For us, scale-ups are startups that has been able to raise over $1 million since inception. And you can see the data that we have put together year over year. So the number of new scale-ups year over year, and the darker line shows you the capital that has been raised year over year. And then you can see that the ecosystem has been constantly growing, let's say from the beginning of the last decade, and particularly there's been two inflection points. The first one around 2012, 2013, and then that one President Hollande started his mandate. And definitely with Hollande there's been a strong acceleration of startup activities. And particularly there's been a growing emphasis on the startup ecosystem, on the digital ecosystem, and that has been really helping the ecosystem to grow, and particularly to take even more recognition and reputation inside the country. And the other inflection point has been with President Macron, that has accelerated everything that President Hollande has started. And so this has been the second inflection point that you can see. Obviously, the numbers has been moving from levels that you can see are just below the $1 billion of investment. That has been the value that has been up to 2014. Then the numbers start moving into the 2 billion territory. That has been something between 14 and 17, and more for moving across 4 or 5 billion. That has been the dynamics of the past few years. 2016, 2018, 2019, 2020. And then this year we have been having a strong additional acceleration, that moving the capital raise from the level of the $5 billion that has been the level of the past few years to over the 10 billion. That has been a significant jump up. And particularly what thing that has been changing in the past year has been the number of what is called mega deals. The mega deals are rounds above 100 million, the one that move a scale up into the next level, that's what we call as a scaler. And particularly, if you look at the number of mega deals, we have been 8 mega deals in 19, 9 mega deals in 20, and 28 mega deals this year. And that is a significant acceleration. So meaning that Europe is moving from the sort of from the startup and scale up territory into what is called the super scaling territory, super acceleration. And again, this has been not just a natural evolution of the system, but this has been a natural evolution, reaching maturity of the system, also supported again by the political vision. In fact, if you go back to January 2020, if you can remember, has been President Macron launching the TB initiative for specifically supporting the scaling up of the French ecosystem. And the number looks to support such a policy. And particularly if we look at the number of 2021, as mentioned, we have almost 30 mega deals. And particularly we are having some deals that are even more than 100 million. We can remember Sorar, able to raise 680 million. Miracle, over $500 million. Content Square, again, another $500 million raise, and then we go down to the 300, 400 level with companies like Ledger, EAD, Mano Mano, and Back Market. So this is just example of companies that are really becoming the tech champions that Europe needs if we want to move to the next level. So this is the overview as being of the growing phase that France has experienced. It's important to put the growth of France into perspective. And so if you can look at the number in here, we are comparing the capital raised by French scale-ups, is the one that I put in blue, with some nearby countries, specifically the United Kingdom, this is the red bar, and then Spain, the orange bar, and Germany, the darker one, the green darker one, and Italy, the light green one. And so if you can see the number, obviously there is one outlier inside Europe, that is the UK. As you see, UK has been crossing the 4 or 5 billion bar before the others, and is in the past few years been moving, dancing in between the 10 and 15 billion. And this year is supposed to break the 30 billion. So meaning that the number of UK has been doubled, moving from 15 billion average to 30 billion this year. Germany is another powerhouse, despite not comparable to the UK. And you can see that the number of Germany has been crossing the 5 billion bar back in 19. And now this year they are supposed to multiply by 3, crossing the 15 billion bar. And again, while for UK, the number of superscalers or the number of unicorns is something that is becoming more and more frequent. Again, just in the few years, we have seen companies raising over 1 billion, like TSG, Constellation, OneWeb, Kazoo, and Revolut. In Germany, the outlier are N26, Gorillas, and Celonis. Spain, France, as you see, the number of French are slightly comparable to the one of Germany. Technically, something that will be in the next slides, but I will show you later, is that the number of France has a larger volume of scale-ups, but a lower volume in terms of volume of capital raise. So substantially, they still have a smaller scale-ups compared to Germany as an average. And you can see the number of capital raise in France is slightly lower than the one that we have seen and experienced in Germany. Looking at Southern Europe, obviously the best performer is Spain, when you can see that Spain has been able to cross the 3 billion bar from past few years, when has been dancing around the billion bar from 18 to 20. And again, also in here, we are seeing the main outliers like Globo and Idealista with 0.5 billion each capital raise. That has been the one that has been pushing the Spanish number above, while Italy still is supposed to cross the 1 billion bar in 2021. Also led by some outliers. The largest one has been Satispay with the 150 million round. So this is the overall overview. So looking at Europe and specifically at France, France is one of the powerhouses of Europe. Obviously, it's not at the same level as the UK. UK is playing a different league, the Premier League, while Germany and France are pretty close by, driving the growth of the European tech ecosystem. Southern Europe is still a bit a laggard compared to the two Central Europe powerhouses. But again, if we want to put, again, even more in perspective, more international and global perspective, the number of France, and also having some other indicators that may help us to properly assess where France is and how France compares to the rest of the world, we can use these numbers just to help you to read these numbers. In the first line is the number of scale-ups, meaning, as mentioned, startups able to raise $1 million since inception. The second line is the number of what we call superscalers, 100 million of capital raised since inception. The fourth line is the one that we call superscalers or unicorns, the one that are able to raise over 1 billion. The fourth line is the capital that has been overall raised by the scale-ups in the country and the region. And then we use two indicators. The one that you find in the fifth line is the one that we call the scale-up density. So we try to compare the number of scale-ups with the number of the population, number of scale-up per 100,000 inhabitants, while the last line is what we call the investing ratio, and compare the capital invested with the GDP, just also to be able to assess the numbers, also comparing them with the size of the country, or the size of the region they belong to. And again, you see in France, we have approximately 1,500 scale-ups, able to cumulatively raise $33.5 billion. This $35 billion equals to the 1% of the French GDP. And the number of scale-ups tell us that there are 2.2 scale-ups every 100,000 inhabitants. You can see France is still not home to any unicorns or super scalers. So no French company has been yet able to raise over $1 billion, while there are 70 scalers, company able to raise over 100 million, like the example that I was making before. How these numbers compare? As mentioned, these numbers are better than Germany in terms of number of scale-ups, but lower than Germany in terms of capital raise. We're talking about 34 billion versus 48 billion in Germany, but 1,500 scale-ups versus 1,100 scale-ups in Germany. So the two countries are pretty close by. And also, you can see also the ratio at the bottom of the table are pretty close to each other. In terms of Southern Europe, as you see, the numbers is definitely lower. We're talking about 1/3 for Spain and probably 1/5 for Italy. And France and Germany compare approximately represent 10% of the overall Europe construction. In Europe, the dominant role is played by UK, when you can see the number of scale-ups is about 3,500, able to raise 100 billion cumulatively. So we're talking about UK is about 40% of Europe, and is about 2 times or 3 times compared to capital the numbers of France and Germany. And again, how this number compare if we go beyond Europe? Obviously, France, in terms of scale-up numerosity, is pretty at the level of a small country like Israel. Israel is 8 million population, and the number of scale-up in Israel is higher than the number of scale-ups in France. This is the reality. And also the capital invested in Israel is higher than the capital invested in France. And again, comparing Israel with the GDP, we're talking about capital invested is about 11% of 1% of the GDP. And in terms of density, you're talking about 18 scale-ups per 100,000 inhabitants versus 2 in France. So this is just some number. Even if you go beyond Israel, and if you go to Silicon Valley, and you can see that Silicon Valley is by far is a powerhouse of innovation, because in 40 miles you have a number of scale-up that is slightly at the level that you can find in 45 countries in Europe. And the capital raised is $500 million, that is 3 times the capital that almost 2 times the capital that you can find in 45 countries in Europe. So this is just to tell you why everybody is looking at Silicon Valley, and there is a reason for doing that. And also because Silicon Valley is 1/3 of the United States. And again, China is at the level of Europe in terms of numerosity of scale-ups and slightly higher in terms of capital raise. And then some emerging countries like South Korea are definitely catching up with France and Germany, despite the ecosystem just started a few years ago. So just to give you this number to help you to assess the progress that a country like France has done, and also the progress that we are witnessing in Europe at a broader level. Obviously, when we're talking about a startup ecosystem, typically is say that it takes 2 to tango, and also is typical. It's the same thing we can say looking at the startup ecosystem. We don't need startup, but also we need also the counterparts of startups, enabling them to scale up. And these counterparts are called corporates. And open innovation is all about factoring and fostering a collaboration between startups on one hand and corporates on the other hand. And it is so important that corporates in an ecosystem play a dominant role. In this slide, we have done a pretty interesting exercise trying to map all the corporate venture capital fund that has been launched by French corporates in the past 15 years almost. And then this number, if you remember the number that we were showing you before, in terms of the evolution of the French ecosystem, in a certain way are mirroring the growth trajectory that we have seen in the past slides, particularly if you consider the density of the logos, and particularly you see also the level of the logo, meaning the distance between the logo and the axis, the x-axis, that has also how much is the capital being poured into the ecosystem. You can see that there have been just a few early players between 2008 and 2013, approximately, anything before Hollande presidency. And afterwards, starting 2014, has been an acceleration of what is called the corporate venturing phenomena. And you see definitely a densification of corporates, and more has been started to deploy capital. And most of this capital obviously has been benefit from the startup of the ecosystem. And there's been a even further acceleration in the past few years, and particularly not just in terms of numbers of CVC to be launched, but mostly in terms of the size of the CVCs that has been launched in the past few years. And that is particularly interesting because, again, it's not something that has happened naturally. Yes, obviously, there is a natural evolution. More and more corporates we are seeing, and this is a phenomenon across the globe, are approaching and entering the open innovation arena. But most of the time also, the acceleration of phenomena might be politically driven or politically fostered. And again, I was referring before to the TB initiative that's been launched by President Macron in January 2020. And again, the goal has been to try to fill the gap. That is a gap that, by the way, is not just in France, but it's the gap that we are seeing across Europe. And the gap is that we are witnessing more and more startups coming into play, but just a few of them are really able to scale up and becoming large technology companies. So what we were seeing, there was a sort of chasm between the early stage and the later stage. And one of the reasons that is most of the time has been indicated is that there was a substantial lack of large venture capital funds, because most of the venture capital funds in Europe was of a size were able to support the early stage of the company, probably up to the Series A, sometime to the Series B. But when a startup, in order to move to the next steps, was needing to raise over 20, 30, 50, 100 million, the only way to do that was to move across the pond and land in the US, when typically there was venture capital and corporate venture capital were able to fill these funding rounds and pay these tickets, and particularly the size of these tickets. And so that said, you can see with the TB initiative launched by President Macron in January 2020, the goal has been specifically to try to fill this gap. And by filling this gap has been to fostering the ecosystem, particularly involving the corporates in the ecosystem, but not only to enter the later stage part of the game. And so more and more larger fund has been launched. You can see some example over there. Probably the most visible one has been the Renault Nissan Alliance partnership, over 1 billion, but you can see Total deploying an amount of money only close to the $500 million. AXA launching an early stage fund back in 2019, and a larger fund just announced beginning of this year, if I can remember, was June, for 250 million, to be fulfilled for a similar amount by the end of this year. And so this has been some example of the size of the play that has been put in place by these players. Again, if this number explain more and more French corporates are supporting the ecosystem, not for the benefit, just for the benefit of the ecosystem, but for the benefit of themselves, because we need to remember that the corporates are in the open innovation game not because they are to do a sort of pro bono activities for the ecosystem, because in their specific interest to co-innovate with innovation vehicles that may be able to help them to survive and not to be disrupted. Because again, the mantra that we are continuing using is to evolve or be extinct. That open innovation is the only way forward.
Okay, I think we are now in time. Actually, we're a few minutes early, so for once we'll have a little more time to discuss and try to involve some of our corporate partners into the initiative. We're going to talk about, again, going back to France in the interview we'll be having right after these two panels. But now let me introduce the first panel to make all the conversation about open innovation a little bit more practical. Let me call on the virtual stage. I wish that our friends were here with us in Paris, but unfortunately they're not, because that is not possible yet. So let me introduce the first panel with three corporate partners, one after the other. First of all, we'll have Ruggero Recchioni, that is the head of venture building and scouting at Terna. Hi, Ruggero.
Hi, Marco. Hi.
You're still mute.
Hello.
There we go. Now we can hear. Very
Okay.
good.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, welcome. And then we have Nicola Rossi, that is the head of innovation at Enel Green Power and Enel Global Power Generation. Hi, Nicola.
Hi, Marco.
Good to see you again. And then we have, last but not least, Phil Scart, that I'm seeing in a while since the last meeting that we had in Asia, General Manager FTP, and also part of the group CNH. So great to have you, all of you. The idea is to spend the next 15, 20 minutes to talk about some of the major activities that your companies, and you in particular in the role that you cover, have been involved in. And so probably, I think for the benefit of the audience, let's discuss real quick, like in a minute of introduction, each of you, what does your company do for a living, and in particular, where innovation sits in your group. So again, let's keep the same order. We'll start with Ruggero.
Okay. So I've heard Alberto talking about powerhouses, and I guess that both me and Nicola know something about it. No, Terna is the Italian transmission system operator, which means that we operate the high voltage grid in Italy, and we have to look after something like 70,000 kilometers of lines and cables that bring the energy to the country. We are 4,500 people, more or less. Innovation is the tool that allows us to cope with the energy transition, which is a big transformation that is happening now. In general, I would say that we have both a central innovation department and we have a model which has a distributed approach. So the main business unit, both the transmission operator, which looks after the asset management, the renewal of the hardware, and the system operator, which looks after the balance of the grid, have two what we call innovation factories within.
Very good. Thanks for the introduction. Phil, FPT, CNH, kind of a complex structure. So give us a little sense of how you are structured, and in particular, where does the innovation unit or the innovation units sit within the company organization?
Okay, so CNH Industrial is one of the major players in the capital goods market. So let's say we're the energy users. We make the energy that these guys are producing. We produce power, so for on-road vehicles, agricultural vehicles. So in FPT, where innovation is always been a very important part of our DNA. We've always looked at all the novel technologies that we've been introducing over the past 20, 30 years. So it's part of our normal working environment. We've always been challenged by the environment, by the legislation to always be innovative, to push forward the boundaries of our powertrain systems. So we now looking forward trying inside FPT. We have founded an open innovation department. And we are trying to, let's say, instill innovation ideas into the whole of our product development community. And the idea is also to roll this out to the rest of the organization. Clearly, there are some different needs, some changes as well in the organization, which I can perhaps explain a little bit later. But it's really fostering that innovation spirit in all of the product development engineering community to push forward to the next level.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the recent maturation and changing of your company structure. So, Nicola, your turn. Enel, speaking of powerhouses, tell us how is Enel structure and where does innovation reside?
Yeah, I want to give you just a few figures on Enel Green Power. Okay, that is the company, the part of Enel I work for. Enel Green Power is a global leader in the field of renewable energies. We work in the overall value chain of renewable energy, so from business development to engineering, construction, operation, maintenance, and last but not least, end-of-life management of renewable assets. That is something we need to think about right now. And we operate 1,200 plants in 27 countries worldwide. And we have a pretty aggressive plan to grow in the renewable arena, because today we are managing installed capacity of approximately 50 gigawatts, but looking in front of us 9 years, so by 2030, we are planning to increase by 100 gigawatts this installed capacity. So we need a lot of innovation to support this growth, to make this growth sustainable, and in the long run, of course, and to maintain competitiveness. So there is a lot of innovation to be done in this world. So how innovation is structured? Innovation is structured in Enel embedded into the business. Okay, so we have an innovation coordination and management function at holding level, but then any innovation groups stay into the business line and work side by side with the innovation, with the business teams. And this is the way that we think is very effective in order to create an impact into the business with innovation. So my team works with engineering and construction teams, with O&M teams, with health and safety teams, daily, addressing their challenges and trying to find solutions to solve these challenges. That's the way we work. And the same happens in the other business lines, so infrastructure and networks, NLX, and other business line of Enel.
Very good. So thanks for the introduction of all your entities. Are not the easiest thing to understand from the outside, the way they're structured. So giving some support in the orientation is always helpful. Nicola, back from you. So when we talk about typically our portfolio mix of activities in the open innovation range, we typically show a number of different boxes that might or may not be included in a portfolio of the company. And some can involve or not investment or venture client or accelerators or acquisition. So how is Enel prioritizing this innovation mix? Can you tell us of some of the key elements of Enel strategy when it comes to open innovation actions?
Yeah, basically, our main target is to make startups growing with us, but not only with us. Growing with us, but operating and working in a much wider environment than that we can offer, okay? Because what we think is that if we link too much startup to us, the risk is that we limit the capacity of the startup to grow. And this is exactly what we do not want. So the model we adopt is mainly venture clients, okay? So we work with startups, trying to find together win-win areas of working, so areas where they see a business and where we see a need. This is the first key pillar of the way we select startups to work with. And then typically we buy products from startups, allowing them to demonstrate the value of their products, to create a reference working with us, driving also the development of their products that sometimes are not fully developed. At least as we would like to have, and in this way making the startup capable to attract partners that could be venture capitalists, but also other customers. Why not? because this is also part of our open approach. No, I don't think we need or the value is only to have an exclusive relation with startup. The value is in working and driving the startup to find solutions that are good for you, and why not also for the others, because the environment in this field of energy transition is so wide that there is space for everyone. So we do not think that to have an exclusive relation with the startup is give us a competitive advantage. We think that what gives us an advantage is to leverage on startup to develop products and services that allow us to be more competitive in the world we play and we compete. So that's the way we work, and that's the major channel of activation for startup, at least in ENA.
Yeah, in fact, on that point, actually, this morning I was having a conversation with your CEO in an interview that will be published in the next few weeks. I was actually defining really the whole idea of open power today. So it's part of one of the relatively new narrative from Enel. Back to the venture client model. I think last year you were one of the entities that got awarded as the best in class for venture client. Do you have any suggestions for other companies, other corporates, and how to make the venture client model as successful as possible?
I think that the key of success for this model is to find the right partner for the right challenge, for the right needs. Okay, so it's not just that you ask and wait for an answer, but you need to create a value for both the entities, the big company, as we are in this case, and the startup that works with you. Okay, so the value is not just in developing the solution, but also in allowing the startup to grow while working on the development of the solution with you. Okay, so that's the key point. If you start with these conditions, that means not looking just to ourselves, but look also to your player and make their success your success. That's the key, I would say. Then I think you really can create an impact, because startup can follow you, can give you flexibility in developing what you need, can give you speed, that is also very important, and can take from you what it is required for the startups to grow, to attract players that can support their growth and so on. So that's really the key. Find a way to work that is win-win. It's not just something that is beneficial for one of the two parties. And it seems easy, but it's not easy, because you have to look to the context in a way that is not only your point of view, but also the startup point of view.
Yeah, it sounds easier than what it actually is. A lot of corporates are still having this unbalanced relationship with the startups that sometimes is not fruitful. So I think to be able to lower also, I'm not saying the expectation, but also the presence of a corporate in a world of innovators and being open to learn and understand is probably something that takes time to incorporate in the general process. Switching to Terna here, Ruggero, give us a little bit of highlights of in the portfolio of activities that Terna is undertaking when it comes to open innovation. What are the top priorities for you?
So we have a use of different tools in open innovation, and we start from idea generation, so the opportunity of using hackathons and open calls to explore specific fields. In particular, we are interested in those fields that are not on our specific core business, such as materials and sustainable materials, or Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, and all the the new trends that can bring value to our activity. Apart from this, we're setting up units dedicated to scouting for technologies, so for solving specific problems. And then we have entrepreneurship programs that are specifically dedicated to bring innovation culture within the company and help also the talents and the good ideas to come to surface. We have to understand that Terna is quite a particular player, so there's a lot of vertical knowledge within the company. So there are a lot of good ideas and good guys that have brilliant ideas that can come out, and we found that entrepreneurship is for sure an opportunity to take out these talents and bring them also in a path that can bring to creating their own success within the company or even in the market. So the idea is to build something that can be valuable both for Terna and for other situations. And
I was
please.
about to say, maybe give us some color, a little more color of some of the examples of an entrepreneurship program in terms of the process that you undertake, the filtering, what goes next. We just had hosted a bootcamp about this with a number of you guys, so I think it's fresh also from stems from that discussion, typically in an open innovation environment.
Yeah, this has been the first year for a program whose name is Terna Ideas, and that brought 400 colleagues. You think that Terna has 4,000 people within, so it means 10% of the company has participated to the initiative. We collected something like 150 ideas that have been selected, and 6 of them will be presenting their solution at the end of the year. So this is the first round for us. There are many promising solutions that are coming out, both from the challenge that is regarding the new ways of working and the new way of using the spaces. So it's something that is more related to the change of the way we work after the COVID period, but also from some specific solution and the need of the company, such those that are around safety issues that, of course, for Terna, with many people working around risky operation, is something that is really fundamental. We will see, I hope, in the next month, the best ideas to be developed and accelerated, while the program of Terna Ideas itself will run at least for 3 years, because we know that it takes time, and you have to believe it on a continuous rolling process to get the best from these activities. But I have to admit that the first year was really a big success for us, because it's really a huge participation from the people.
Good. Phil, your turn. What is the preferred portfolio mix of open innovation activities within CNH Industrial?
Well, I think we're looking at a large range. I mean, if we look from large joint ventures, so we look for sort of Piccola joint venture, which was kicked off about 2 years ago, where we're linking in directly to a major startup, a major company to get a start in particular technology. On the other side, we've been spreading ourselves, looking at smaller startups, putting out challenges in particular areas where we don't have the technology in-house to develop. So that was part of the way, let's say, what our journey started, where we're looking at together with Mind the Bridge, we were looking at various startups with challenges and working with proof of concepts on particular technologies which we were missing internally in our organization. And this is how we are carrying on. Clearly, we founded Open Innovation this year within FBT, and we are populating it with people with different skills. Artificial intelligence we didn't have, so we brought these in. And we are now using open innovation as a sort of a home for innovation within the FBT world. So we're using our structure to reach out to the engineering community to ask for ideas, running hackathons. Where can, for example, artificial intelligence support you in your daily work? So these are the challenges, some of the way we are spreading the innovation into the engineering community to get the feedback and to start to feed the whole wheel. So it's kind of spread about. Clearly, we have some M&As which have taken place, or technologies which were missing within our know-how, our portfolio, to get an inorganic growth. Other side, where we're actually bringing engineers from within the engineering community into open innovation to start working on projects. And we have plans next year to run some more serious, let's say, entrepreneurship schemes where we can actually bring people away from their daily work for 2 or 3 months to work within the community, within open innovation, to work on a product, to try and drive forward and inject that into the whole of the organization.
You mentioned before the big changes are happening within the structure. So maybe just a couple of words about the impact of the spin-off of the Iveco Group, in particular when it comes to your innovation activities.
Yeah, well, just for everybody, just to make it clear, at the end of the year, CNH Industrial will be split off into 2 separate entities. CNHI, which will remain off-road, so agricultural, construction equipment, and from Iveco Group, which would take part, which would be Iveco and FBT. So basically the on-road section of the today's company. That will start beginning of January next year if everything goes according to plan. The differences we're going to be seeing from a point of view of open innovation in Iveco Group is clearly we've got a lot more chances of some cross-functional and cross-segment innovation possibilities. Because before, with a large company with five different business units, sometimes the exchange wasn't quite so fruitful. But now we've clearly got a much leaner organization. We've got a clear commitment from our management to be much more horizontal, much more interactive between the different functional areas. So we're looking at injecting in open innovation ideas into the whole of the organization, connecting in the vehicle with the powertrain, because those are really the advantages they're going to give us in the next years. Is if we can get the innovation, connecting the actual power generation, the power creation to the vehicle, which is the use of the energy, use of the power, then we'll really get the advantage there. So we've kind of had a slowdown this year because with a company split off, everybody's focused somewhat on the next few months. But as soon as we get clear, we start to run, when we are pretty sure that we'll be pushing the open innovation spirit into the whole of the Iveco Group organization.
Very good. We're about to close. Just want to have the last super quick round of questions. Tell me one big project around open innovation that gets you excited in 2022. Maybe we can start with Nicola. So Phil, you have time to think about it.
We have many projects, so it's difficult for me to do. But for sure, one of the most interesting projects is related to wind power. So we are testing with a startup the possibility to change completely the way blades are designed. Perfect. So passing from composite material to textile material. That means more sustainability, less weight, and more production. So that's for sure one of the most interesting.
Ruggero, one exciting open innovation project.
We're digitalizing an operation procedure that has been done by paper and phone since I think 60 or 70 years, and this will be a great disruption, but it will require a lot of work because there is beneath the procedure there is a strong safety issue. So it may seem simple, but it will require the involvement of many people, and we are confident that it will work and bring a big change. So small technology, big change.
Good luck with that. Phil, now you have time.
Uh,
Biggest project, Open Innovation
biggest-
2022.
2022 is clearly injecting artificial intelligence into our engineering community. That's we started, and I see we've got a massive data lake information in our engineering world, our engine engineering world. We're going to start leveraging that using artificial intelligence tools to really make a significant improvement on the use of our data. That's my big project for next year.
Very good. So congratulations to everybody. All the best for a great 2022. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Ruggero. We'll see you guys soon.
See you soon.
Bye. See you soon. Hopefully live. Now, next year on the agenda, we have a quick introduction of the platform that we've been using and will be using more and more to match corporates with the startups. And I leave it to Marwan from our innovation team.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marwan Abdallawi, Innovation Director at Mind the Bridge. I'm very pleased to be here with you. So I'm going to share with you some insight about the startups that are participating in our summit, the Paris Scaleup Summit. And I will be using the Mind the Bridge ecosystem. So what is exactly this Mind the Bridge ecosystem? Well, basically, it's a platform where innovation and business meetings happen. How does it work? Well, we gathered and we update challenges and needs from corporations, and we put those on the platform. And then we allow the startups that we have vetted as innovation advisor, and we allow them to apply to those challenges. But enough talking. Let's see how actually that happened. You should see now in your screen, basically the Mind the Bridge ecosystem. This is after that, obviously, you have logged in. But basically here, let me help you understand a little bit more what is this what is this about. You have a homepage here with all the summits and even some dedicated content and some upcoming summits and even some bootcamp if you're doing some bootcamp with us. So here in the menu, in the Explore feature, you have basically a feature that helps you to go and navigate through all the startups. So you have the whole MTB ecosystem with all the startups that have participated in the previous summits and in our bootcamps. So yeah, here you have with the menu, you have the Explore part, a portfolio, agenda, and dashboard. Today, I will focus on the Explore part as I want to show you a bit more about the startups that are participating at this summit. But just in a nutshell, the portfolio menu is about a startup relationship management. So it helps you really go through your funnel and and where you are with your relationship with startups. And here I have the corporate point of view. The agenda is basically all the meetings that you have planned. Here I have only one, but this is just fake data. And then basically the dashboard is basically a recap page where you can see all the startups that you have met through the year, and a bit more kind of insight about their origin, their again the stage of relationship, and then the challenges that they applied for, etc. Moving back to the Explore part, here I want to show you basically the Paris Summit. So I'll click on by summit, and then basically I'll click on all startups because I want to show you all the startups that are participating here and not your selection. Well, here you see basically the whole startups that are participating. I will not go through all of them, but basically I will just pick 2 to 3 startups. I'll choose a LinkedIn car, which is basically an a startup focused on automotive. Basically, here you can see that you have a short description. You also have some feedback from us. Like basically, I mentioned that we vet those startups, so that's where you can get those insights. Here, basic information: where are they based, number of employees, and here you can have even the pitch deck, and obviously the website and LinkedIn page. Here you can save it for later. You can also request for meeting and mention if you're not interested in that specific startup. Few other things that I believe are interesting for you to understand is basically how to filter them. Here you can see that basically you can filter them by country. You can filter them by vertical. So here, for example, aerospace or circular economy, productivity software, and even by technology. So I think that one could be very interesting for you if you're specifically interested in one technology. My evaluation is basically it's the feedback that you gave about those startups. So here, obviously, it's blank because I didn't have any, but just wanted to share that with you. Again, if you're interested in the platform, feel free to reach out to us. I will be happy to show you more about the platform and how you can leverage the platform to foster your innovation meetings. Thank you very much.
So we are back with the second panel of the day. Again, we have a larger group of companies now to discuss with. And specifically, we'll have a selection of our corporate partners ranging from Italy up to Spain. And so specifically, and the pleasure we have with me today, also a pretty large group of customer and friends who have been started working since a while. And so, first of all, welcome to Paris, despite I'm in Paris, you are not, unfortunately for you. And I think it's important to probably we'll ask each of you to briefly introduce yourself and particularly introduce what your company does, and maybe just give a short flavor of what are the main innovation activities that you have been running. So let's start from Acea. Andrea Frattini is the head of Scouting, Innovative Solution and Ecosystem at Acea. Ciao, Andrea.
Ciao, Alberto. Good afternoon, everybody.
So let's start from you, and just a quick introduction in terms of what Acea does for our audience, and then what are the main innovation activities that you guys are running.
Sure. Acea is one of the main multi-utilities in the Italian market. We are active in the management of networks and services in the water, energy, and environmental sector. We are the leading Italian operator in the sector of integrated water services. We manage 4 regions and we serve more than 9 million customers. Moreover, we are committed to safeguarding water resources, making sure that water entering homes of our clients has been checked and it's drinkable. For our energy part, we distribute power supply and heating mainly in the metropolitan area of Rome for private use and also for public and artistic lighting. We also operate in the waste management sector and for the disposal and waste to energy sector in line with the European trend for circular economy policies. I am in the innovation unit. I am responsible for scouting of new technological solution, design, development, and financing of innovation projects in line with corporate business requirement and principle of open innovation. Over the past years, let's say they have been working hard for innovation to become an essential part of the Acea's group strategy. Our business plan for the next years includes more than 600 million euros of investment in projects covering all our industrial areas. We have our innovation model called Innovation as a Service, and our model is to generate impact for our people, our business, and of course our customers. And we do this through an open model of innovation that is based on our instruments of inbound and outbound open innovation, of course. So very important for us is the commitment of our people in order to involve them and have all our innovation needs. But also it's important have a partnership with the external ecosystem of innovation. And an example of this important partnership is the one with MindedBridge, of course.
Definitely is probably the most important one, not just joking. But I think you just launched a very interesting entrepreneurship program. It's called Acea Innovation Garage, if I'm not wrong. Can you just, in 20 seconds, describe what has been your experience thus far?
Yes, the Innovation Garage, as you said, is our entrepreneurship program. We are collecting ideas and projects inside the organization. We have launched a call for ideas for all our people. We have collected more than 200 ideas in the second edition. In the first, we have collected 120. So the collection of ideas has grown, and we are happy of that. We collect these ideas, and we have selected many of these ideas, 15 ideas, to a step called a pitch day, in which our colleagues have the occasion to present the ideas in front of our directors of all the business areas. And we have done this step a week ago, and 3 ideas have been selected for a phase of acceleration that is going to last almost 3 months. And in this phase, they have the opportunity to accelerate the idea, have tools and also budget to accelerate that. They are going to have in the next years an investor day, in which they are going to represent the idea, but we hope that has become a POC, an MVP that they can sell to our directors. And we are going to discover if one of that is going to become the new YD. YD is a platform that we have been launched in the previous version of the Innovation Garage, and now it's a product, an app that is widespread and it's being used in Rome.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrea. So let's move, let's cross the Mediterranean. Let's land in Spain. We have Javier Gonzalez. Javier, the Open Innovation Manager at Acciona. Hi, Javier. How are you doing?
Hi, Alberto. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Same for you, Javier. It would be good to provide a short description of what Acciona does. Again, it's a pretty small conglomerate, I have to say. So probably it might be good to hear from you what you guys have been doing, and specifically which has been your focus, talking about innovation, specifically open innovation.
Okay, well, Acciona is a large Spanish company working on renewable energy projects and sustainable infrastructure solutions. So we are present in 40 countries with almost 40,000 employees, a carbon neutral company since 2016. So talking about the main businesses, we deliver renewable energy projects, mainly PV plants, wind farms. And also we are present in delivering transport solutions, mainly civil works related to the construction of railways, tunnels, roads, and also with a strong expertise in water. We take care about the water cycle with expertise in desalination and water treatment. And finally, we deliver also solutions for cities, working in sharing mobility, and other services related to the sustainability of the cities. Okay, and talking about innovation, so as many companies present here, innovation is present across the organization. We have 3 R&D centers, one for construction, mainly focused on construction processes and new materials, and also the other for water, working on chemical processes applied to desalination and water treatment. And finally, one for energy, mainly focused on application of new technologies that will disrupt the energy landscape, like hydrogen or storage. And of course, supporting corporate level in order to find synergies across the organization. Since March of this year, because of the IPO of the energy division, we split the open innovation activities into teams, one dedicated to the infrastructures. I'm representing the infrastructure division that includes water, construction and concessions. And the other team fully dedicated to energy. But in essence, we are acting like one team. So there's no changes in the philosophy, there's no changes in the conditions of the startups and the way we collaborate with them. Because at the end, we support not only energy and infrastructures, but also other divisions of Acciona. One example is the new collaboration program with startups that we have recently launched with 12 challenges. And there's challenges, of course, from energy, from construction, from concessions, from water, but also real estate, financial services, and so on. So at the end, the company and the top management of the company believe in the open innovation activities and not only focus on the main businesses, but also they want to spread these kind of activities to the whole organization.
Perfect. Very, very, very useful to understand also. Understanding also there are the latest reorganization. Again, we have seen in the prior panel CNH separating on highways and off highways activity. And similarly for you, we are seeing this trend of having a corporate more and more having different entities for managing different areas of business. So moving to a larger entity is Eni. Again, Eni is a multinational oil and gas company, now fully involved in what is called digital transition and decarbonization. So I have the pleasure we have with us today Silvia Fierro. Silvia is Digital Scouting Open Innovation, in charge of Digital Scouting Open Innovation at Eni. Hi, Silvia.
Hi, Alberto. Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. You said it all already. So it is a very large energy company. 30,000 employees are spread in 70 countries. That is actually shifting, I would say, radically shifting, and moving basically from a traditional energy and oil and gas company to a completely new company, focusing to be an integrated zero carbon energy company, and setting actually very challenging goals for emission in very short and long-term vision. So from 2030, from actually to 2050. Of course, innovation is a very spread concept into the company. We, as a digital unit, so the unit I'm part of, we work with startups, of course, in order to either establish projects with them, so either POCs or proof of concept or pilot, or actually to find synergies. So we have many different levels of projects we want to work with or we want to scout for, going from startups that are working to the safety area, of course, very important for us, or into the asset integrity areas, of course. We don't have geographies, I would say. Of course, our main headquarters it's in Italy, but we don't work only with Italian startups. We are very open, and we look for startups that are coming from everywhere in the world, I would say. And so we have partners as Mind the Bridge that can help us doing so, and looking into also other geographies and countries.
Great, great. And by the way, you just opened, I think it was a few days ago, your Open Innovation Outpost in Silicon Valley, San Francisco.
Exactly. So we just launched on the 1st of December our first antenna, and we chose Silicon Valley based on data, so based on evidence, to be the best region in the world where startups grow and are present. So we, with our presence, we want to reach finally two main goals: look at trends and translate into the internal business unit to potentially generate innovation needs and feed our innovation portfolio. And on the other side, on the other hand, to intercept disruption technology. And at the very beginning, so really at the very beginning of the inception of those technologies. So one thing you can only do being there and become closer to the big changes that every sector is actually facing there. So that would be our presence from now on in Silicon Valley.
Perfect. So that's been a very, very important move. And I think, by the way, you're not the only ones, because based on our data, we have 320 Fortune 500, Fortune 2000 companies and entities over there. Then when you see all this company with innovation boots on the ground, there should be a reason. And I think the reason is exactly what you just said, trying to be able to see the trends while they're happening and not thereafter, and to be able to anticipate, hopefully, some of them. Perfect. So let's move to the next company, definitely a smaller one, but not less ambitious. It is Luve Group. And I have the pleasure to have with me today is Stefano Filippini, that is the technical director. Hi, Stefano.
Hi, nice to be here all together. Luve is a company manufacturing air heat exchangers in the business principally of refrigeration and air conditioning. And it is in our philosophy trying to have always innovative idea, innovative product, because only bringing new idea is possible to stay competitive, to improve our success, and to give a positive contribution to the entire community, bringing something new and more interesting for all our people.
That's good. And again, you are very, very focused on a specific industry, but let's say you're looking at integrating what are our technical manufacturers with more empowering with the power of big data and IoT. So it will be interesting to understand what is your view, and particularly what are the main trends, what are the main direction that you guys are looking in terms of innovation.
Yes, we are mainly integrated in the so-called cold chain to protect the food. And within this sector, there are a lot of things happening, in particular related to the environmental protection, because we have a clear challenge, which is the change of refrigerant of fluids that is used in the refrigeration industry in order to mitigate the impact on the environmental. This is one important point. And the other point is within the cold chain to ensure the quality of the food conservation for the entire life of the food, starting from the harvest till the food is in the hand of the final consumer. So having the possibility to monitor what is happening in this entire period, it is essential to give a high quality, a safe product, and a product which minimizes the need of energy for its conservation. And of course, our company is pretty much focused on the energy lowering in all the process of food conservation.
Perfect. That is quite interesting and important evolution, and I'm pretty sure you will be able to stay ahead of the curve, because again, this is super important to when you are a substantial leader in a specific areas. Today is important to keep this leadership position, this incumbent position, as much as possible. Maintain it and possibly evolve with leveraging new technology, rather than being a certain point and be disrupted by emerging technologies. So we'll go back to this later on, but now I think let's make a substantial leap and move to China. Today we have with us Andrea Contri. Andrea Contri is the IoT Ecosystem Director for Haier Europe. Haier is a big Chinese multinational that is one of the leaders in the industry. And so, Andrea, I would like that you give us, again, perspective of what Haier is doing. By the way, we know it, but I think it's good, and specifically to explain what is your approach of innovation that is super interesting.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so Haier is the #1 producer of white goods in the world. We are focused specifically in Europe on consumer home appliances. And this focus has been strengthened with the acquisition of the Candy and Hoover brands in 2019. We cover, as Higher Europe, the entirety of the continent and some bits and pieces of EMEA. And we have mainly 5 business units: refrigeration, cooking, washing. Then there is climate control and comfort, as well as small appliances such as vacuuming. So we are a pretty generalist appliance manufacturer. And in particular, the focus of Higher has been very much strategically centered on connecting appliances and having smart appliances become a part of the daily routine of our consumers. And this is an interesting piece that brings innovation not so much as an external practice, but as a native transformation of the product and the consumer experience itself. Because once you have in place the physical infrastructure that allows you to connect an appliance, then it's just the beginning. It opens up a world of interactions with other smart devices in the so-called smart home, as well as the possibility to integrate our devices in workflows and in service experiences that the consumers might have. And so the challenge for us is a big transformational one across the board in terms of rethinking beyond the product and into more of a service dimension and into what the user is trying to do. For example, in the kitchen, the journey that the consumer does from when they enter the environment of the kitchen to when they are done may touch some of our appliances, but it touches a multitude of other points as well. You choose what to cook, then you source it, then you store it, then you pull it out and get it ready and prepare it, then you cook it sometimes in the oven, sometimes on the range, sometimes don't even go through any heating at all, and so on and so forth. And you end up having to, of course, wash dishes at the end of the meal. So reasoning beyond the individual product and into the journey that the consumer is having is the big challenge that we're facing, which is driving us to interact more and more with players outside of our core industry. We are basically a manufacturing company, but we are trying to turn more and more into a service and software company through the interactions made possible by our mobile applications and by our connected firmware on board of our consumer devices.
Yes, and actually, again, if you think about the traditional role of the fridge door that has been as the analogic way of the family to communicate, and now is becoming more and more the interface for communicating what is inside the fridge. And by the way, also on this specific topic, Louvre has a specific business unit that is focused on trying to making the fridge door even more an interface between the products and the customer, and also to intercept customer behavior, and at the same time also to be able to have an interaction, just functional, but also there is a lot of value that might be extracted. So that is very, very interesting. Now let's move to the last but not least, to Attilio Somma. Attilio is the head of communication, partnership, and vertical solution at Nuvol. Nuvol is part of Team Group, and correct me if I'm wrong, and Attilio is the cloud factory of a Team, correct?
Yes, perfect. Nice to be here. And Nuvol is, as you said, a company just born of Team Group. We were born in January, and is the leading Italian cloud enabler supporting the digital transformation of public and private companies in Italy. So it's a sort of startup that already have inside all the experience of Team in ICT services for the enterprise market, has already big asset in terms of data center infrastructure. We just collect all the data center of the offering of Team Group, and we have a strategic partnership with Google Cloud, and with whom we are implementing the big cloud region that will be positioned in Milan and Turin. So our main goal essentially is to help all the companies and organizations through the cloud transformation and supporting the adoption of a wide range of simple and pay-per-use private, hybrid, and multi-cloud solution tailored to the customer needs. the big pillar of Nuwol, so are essentially as I said, the cloud transformation in premise, the data center services where we can host and collocate operators and players in Italy, and all the solution related to the modern workplace, and all the solution and customer experience, digital solution related to essentially artificial intelligence. Thanks to the strong partnership with Google, obviously we can leverage on their platform and also on their expertise to deliver to the market and support all the portfolio related to the enterprise and B2B market. The Nuwol company is, and I want to underline this, is also one of the benefit companies, so an innovative company that operates in a sustainable and transparent manner in the interest of community, essentially focusing on data center green and all other activities of social activities that we are implementing as main goal of our benefit purposes. In terms of innovation, we are obviously working and cooperating with Mind the Bridge, but we have two main focuses on this. One is scouting and putting our portfolio all the innovative cloud solution that we can have on the startup ecosystem and innovative PMI, innovative small office, home office partners. And we are implementing an ecosystem partners that is based on 3 levels of partnership. One is for the big player that we are already putting in our portfolio. It is a strategic cloud for the cloud and the AI. Essentially, we are partnering with the ecosystem of Cisco, big company, VMware, Dell, and others to leverage on their ecosystem of startup and create solution together. Obviously, Google Cloud is our premium partner on this. The second level of partnership is related to create an ecosystem of ISVU and scale-up partners, startup, to implement a model of solution based on the vertical of the market we are approaching. 6 vertical market we are delivering in our B2B focus, and on this we are trying to have the best cherry picking of solution to put in our portfolio. Third one is the education and startup programs that we are implementing. The first one will be delivered with Mind the Bridge on the cloud. We will have another one on the artificial intelligence, where we are putting together the digital form, the digital events in collecting a digital platform, leveraging also on innovative platform as the one that we have in Team Bootcamp, in the group of team, but also with the physical approach. We have just delivered the first Center of Excellence on 6th December in Turin with Google Intesa to support all the areas with our platform and with the physical area where we have technical developers and startup to implement solution and bring in the portfolio of Google Cloud, Intesa, and all our partners. And we are extending this program, also physical presence, on 5 different areas in Italy that we are going to disclose. So essentially, we see the physical location where we can bring customers, startup, and ecosystem strategic partner putting together in a co-working way in developing solution. A last important point, we have an important, obviously, relation with all the programs of open innovation inside team. Essentially, we have some tools like Team Open Innovation, that is the program of a team group that promotes and facilitates the business opportunities with startups and scale up. And for us is the hub that deliver many of the startups to our portfolio. The second one is the Team Corporate Venture Capital, that is the corporate venture capital arm of the team group that invest and sustain startup essentially in line with the main needs of the team strategy and team portfolio. That is a strategy not just to connectivity, but beyond connectivity, with some important subsidiary like Nuvola focused on cloud and IE, Olivetti based on IoT, and Telsi on cybersecurity. Three of the big subsidiary of Team Group based on the new, we can say, wave of revenues, opportunities, and business model in the market.
I think this is a good picture. I think this is also good, again, because the goal also of the Scaleup Summit is also to help scale-ups from all over the world to exactly understand what you guys have been doing, what you guys are up to, and at the same time also to share best practice learnings, benchmarking experiences among peers. Because again, one of the other part of the audience that is typically following our activities, innovation executives from all over the world. I think there is a lot of learning, a lot of cross-sharing that might be implemented and leveraged. Talking about specifically that, I think there is one company in this group, that is Acea, that has recently launched a lean procurement process, because one of the main barriers of open innovation is, yes, you find the right startups, but then it takes forever to contractualize it. Also, if you're talking 20,000, 50,000 euros, that's become a sort of a painful journey through procurement, legal, that might actually kill the potential innovation opportunity because it takes forever to close it up. So now more and more corporates are trying to introduce fast track for onboarding startups. And I think Acea has been one of the most interesting example here. So I will ask Andrea if you can quickly describe what you guys have been doing, because I remember the initial situation that you guys had, and now I think that it's very, very appealing what you guys have been able to put in place.
Yes, Alberto, as you said, we have developed a lean procurement process. Our goal in Acea was to overcome the obstacles of traditional procurement, because we see that payment terms and conditions that were good for large corporate were not good for the engagement of innovative startups or small medium enterprises, because they can follow this purchasing procedure. Because they can survive with these rules. So we have developed this lean procurement process together with our colleagues of the procurement unit. We have done that to facilitate the sourcing from startups of innovative small and medium enterprises. We have implemented new registers referring to some clusters, 4 clusters, in particular digital infrastructure, robotics, human augmentation, and IoT. And so we have developed this process that enable them to have some advantages. One of that is the contractual conditions. They can benefit of a 30-day payment instead of a 120 payment that is been so long for them. And they can participate to challenge or to call for startups that are dedicated for them. We have launched many of that in the last months. A concrete example is the one in which we have choose a startup that has been awarded for the implementation of innovative system in the customer intelligence field. We have launched a challenge in this cluster. So we have the need to have a new customer intelligence for the integrated water services, and a startup called JustBeat has been awarded. And now the project has been scaled and industrialized inside the company. Well, we have been launching so many challenge, and we have also awarded for this lean procurement process recently at SMAU. And it was very important for us to have been awarded to this process, because we think that is an important step to have a faster collaboration with startups.
always is a good thing to get, but I think it's the recognition, and particularly also, again, is a real need to be able to move fast, because again, one thing that we do not have, actually you guys do not have as corporate, is time, because again, disruption is approaching, and the faster you are able to move, the better. And so most of the time you are very, very good at scouting, but then all your scouting efforts got killed by very, very complicated procurement and legal processes. Javier, I think I would like that you might describe some success stories of collaboration with startups. Again, it pops up to my mind your collaboration with FlexiDAO that went beyond the partnership between you and the startup, also involving a large telco. So maybe you can give us some description again. What has been the journey to onboard a company like that? What worked?
Well, it's just like Andrea says, it's very important, this part of the collaboration, the fast track for purchasing and another legal and other matters related to that part of the process, because at the end, part of the main success of the initiative is how we are collaborating with the startups. We are different ingredients for this program. The first one is challenges. Challenges directly by the business, and also a supporting framework for startups, as I mentioned before. And co-creation is key for us. It's something that, for instance, with FlexiDAO, we did in the past and with good results. It's just to co-create solutions, no matter if the startups has experience in that field, because FlexiDAO was focused on demand response capabilities, but they don't have enough experience in the track and trace of the energy consumption, and in terms of certification of the origin of the renewable energy of the clients. So we were working with them, and also to realize and to see how could be the project in the future. Let's say how we implement this kind of solutions, and also the relationship beyond the project, as you say. FlexiDAO is part is not part of the company, but is a strong partner, because thanks to the technology and also the experience of the energy division, we create, as we call, Green Chain. That is one of the services that the energy division provide to the clients. So this is, let's say, the most important or well-known example, thanks to Mind the Bridge for the discounting of this company. But also we have different success cases in construction, also in services. So at the end, the key point here is co-creation, and also to have a program that are gathering the needs and the opportunities from across the organization, and also clear next steps for the startups. They can collaborate with us in terms of generate new revenues or new business models with them as a partners, or let's say only to have client suppliers relationship with these startups. So to summarize, clear next steps, co-creation, and also challenges directly defined by the businesses.
Perfect. I think, yes, this is a really great example of how a collaboration with a startup complementing the industrial expertise might bring us also to the generation of new products that has been also developed to other companies. I would like to ask Silvia to present a good example of collaboration with startups. Again, the first one that pops to my mind is Good to Go, but there are plenty of others that maybe you can recall. And maybe also something that didn't work out properly, and what are the reasons, Silvia?
Yes, so we have, as also Javier said, we have many in the last 3-4 years collaboration with startups. Yes, of course, Too Good To Go that came from one of the Scaleup Summits that we participated in 2019, and we actually started with Too Good To Go in our gas stations. Actually, we don't want really to call it gas station anymore. They're a mobility hub, so we are adding services, new services to these stations, to this value that we have. And so actually with the startup, we started in Italy, and we will actually like to spread it also to other country. And so we offer what is actually what are the leftovers that we have in our any cafe to our customers, to our final customers. This is actually one of our main goals. So the leveraging the gas stations and modifying the gas station of the future, creating the gas station of the future. Maybe another example is what we do in our buildings. So I actually also quote some prizes that we won at SMAU, as Andrea said before, with Nuvap. So with this startup that is an Italian one, we monitor our buildings. So how is the air that we breathe? How is the environment that we are living every day? So what's inside our buildings in general, temperature, humidity, etc. And this is actually was very helpful to make us understand data. So take decision based on data. And this is something that we were used to do it, but with this startup, I think we go a little bit farther in this idea, in this goal. Another one maybe that was very successful is another startup from UK that is Corrosion Radar. And with them, we are predictive and actually trying to predict where corrosion would happen in our pipes. And this is a very big problem for I think for every industry, and of course for us. And I think for all these three, but for all the contracts that we need to put in place, and for all the startups that we will work together with, main issues, and this is something that we already said, but is mainly time. And we need to ask startups that would like to work with us to be patient, to reply to, of course, to very specific information that we normally require. So process can take time, but I think that is normally is very useful. The collaboration it is normally a win-win collaboration, because at the end the startup can work in a different locations. Also, as we are a very global company, so we can move from, of course, our headquarters, where normally we make the first POCs and the first pilots, to actually all over the world, as we are very spread all over. And on the other hand, of course, we help them build better projects, build better products. With Nuvap, for example, it worked that way with Too Good To Go also. So I think that these two are very good examples of how to work with startups in a different way.
Definitely they are, and hopefully they will be the first one of even larger series, because what we see while working with large corporation is that is a journey that typically takes speed as far as also internally the condition for working with startups get put in place, then the level and the amount and the value potential impacts of collaboration typically take off. And that is something that is actually we are seeing happening also with you guys. And so that is very, very promising. Going to three companies we just started to work with, I think I would like to ask more on focusing on, again, this interesting question is how do you guys see disruption coming? Where do you see it coming? And so what is the blind spot that you are not seeing? And again, what are the parts that you definitely believe you should cover working with startups? I don't know, Andrea, you want to start from you?
Yeah, thank you. As I mentioned, we are a manufacturing company, and we tend to think along traditional, let's say, value chain lines. The disruption will come, and it's actually already coming in the form of new services and new journeys available for our consumers through the smart home. And so for us, the primary scouting territory is that of value-added services in the consumer homes. This can be anything from e-commerce and replenishment of supplies, to energy management with potentially utilities, to insurance for the protection of the home, and so on and so forth. So there are many, many new business models which we won't necessarily own, but where we can play a role with our connected appliances. In some of these cases, we will be the director of the movie, creating our own ecosystem. In other cases, we will be one of the actors that will join in someone else's movie. And so for us, it's at the same time scouting out for technology solutions or business model solutions coming out of smaller startups, but at the same time also looking at scaled up efforts where we can join in and contribute.
That's great. And by the way, IR, I think, is one of the most interesting reference model at global level in terms of your ability to stimulate innovation from your multiple subsidiaries. And so that is something that you're becoming more and more a benchmark also for stimulating innovation, let's say cross country and cross entities approach. And I think this is something very, very interesting also to be monitored as a potential model, also to be followed by others. So very, very interesting situation. Stefano, talking about Louvre Group again, same question for you. Where do you see disruption coming, and where do you believe that startups can contribute to extend the life cycle of your business?
A disruption can arrive from very different sources. I have in mind a couple of examples that are very important for us. One is the environmental protection in refrigeration. In the last year, we have seen a huge change in terms of technology because of the needs coming from political level also to reduce the global impact of, let's say, the refrigeration and the pollution created from the use of different fluids. But we can see also opportunity. One opportunity came recently, and it is coming from, unfortunately, a big disaster, which is this COVID issue. We took the opportunity of cooperating with a company who was giving us an idea how we can modify our product in order to have at the same time a refrigeration device used in working rooms where people are preparing the goods before selling to the customers. So we put on that device a special filter that can kill virus and bacteria, and we are launching this additional optional on this unit, on our unit, and we won recently 2 prizes thanks to this innovation. And somehow it is a way to transform somehow a critical situation into a potential.
Yes, turning interest into opportunities is always a good recipe. Again, let's close with Attilio. Attilio, what is one of the big things that is supposed to be launched next year by Team and Uval specifically?
As I said before, we are very, very focused on all the innovation related to the cloud and to AI. But essentially to AI, we see a strong opportunity, and we're working with some excellent startup on this, in introducing all the low-code, no-code platform to manage business data in a very, very simple way. And this is for us one of the big challenges that we are bringing on our customer. But according to me, intercepting this disruption is the easy part of the work. The problem is how to put in a big corporate as Novel, as Team, and embed the different component of the innovation inside the portfolio. So how to manage, for example, on AI, the edge cloud based on the opportunities, localized opportunity with the deployment of services, and also matching with the connectivity opportunities like 5G. So just managing the end-to-end of innovative feature and disruption, creating something simple to the customers can be the really challenge that we have to manage in terms of opportunity.
Yes, implementation is evil, and most of the time, also if you find the right solution, then turn it into practice is complicated. So, guys, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us today. So definitely we'll keep a close eye on what you guys are doing, and we'll help you as much as possible in fostering your innovation efforts as much as we can. Now is time to reassess our studio to allow the participation of our next and last guest of the day, that is Nicolas Briand. Nicolas is the chairman of Euro Technologies and former president of France Digital. So back here in Paris, and also we have finally our guest also able to beat the traffic in Paris. It is almost a mess. And so welcome, Nicolas Briand. As mentioned, is the chairman of Euro Technologies. That is the largest accelerators in Europe. At least that's the way you present yourself. And we want to even to know more. And again, we know Nicolas since your prior times at France Digital. And Nicolas, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Alberto. What a nice event. I mean, it's quite fantastic to attend such a high-level event in the middle of the corona crisis. I love it.
Well, we were hoping to have a number of friends actually here with us, but
we have plenty.
Yeah, that's the best thing we could do.
That's a global event.
People quite tell that actually the Eiffel Tower is literally behind this wall in the back, but we'll probably show it later. So I think the idea is to cover a little bit of the evolution of the French ecosystem today. We were discussing some data points, really from our perspective as an outsider, as an entity that has been tracking different ecosystems around the world in terms of number of scale-ups and amount of funding also that is being raised. Maybe I think to start would be great to have your input of how you've seen the ecosystem of France in the world of innovation and startups progressing over the few years, because you've been one of the main actors for that.
Well, when I first got into the French startup ecosystem, which was not so long ago, only 7 years ago, the first thing I could hear was, if you want to actually create a startup, you have to do one single thing, one simple, very simple thing, just grab a ticket for the Eurostar and go to London. That was what you guys could hear in the French ecosystem only 7 years ago.
And from French perspective, it was not a good news.
And obviously, yes. From a Napoleon perspective, that was clearly not good news. And today, I hear quite the opposite. I see some of the English folks actually crossing the channel and getting incubated, obviously at Euro Technologies, which is the largest incubator in Europe, but also at my friends at Station F, and in some great places here in the French ecosystem. So I think that's quite fascinating to see this revenge on history, where London used to be the gateway into the European tech ecosystem. And since 2016, obviously, this is still a little bit the case, but clearly this is totally shifting. And you just see the amounts of investment that are poured into Paris as a gateway to continental Europe. And I think that's the very important point, is that you're in Paris, don't think of Paris. Stop thinking of Paris as the capital of France. This is turning increasingly into the capital of the European tech scene, and that's absolutely fascinating.
Also because, if my head, yes, there was this movement from continental Europe to UK, but that was an intermediate step because the next stop was US, and so again, also nobody was really smiling. Now the point is how we can bring and make Europe not just a sort of starting, taking off platform, but also landing platform. And I think that is something that is happening, and France is probably one of the laboratory of moving from the startup phase to the scale-up phase. I think the TB initiative that's been launched by President Macron as one of the first time probably also the world of politics decided to put the scale-up at the center of the scene, not just the startup.
No, it's totally true. I mean, we are still in a catch-up. I cannot say that clearly the amounts of unicorns and the amounts of VC money that are poured into the French ecosystem are totally matching the numbers in London. But clearly, I mean, we are outranking Germany, so which clearly was not the case only 5 years ago. So I think it's very important. And you know how it is. What's the difference between a startup and a digital SME? VC is the VC money. So you have to follow the money. And the money used to come into continental Europe through London. Now it's getting increasingly into continental Europe through Paris, also a little bit Berlin and Amsterdam. And I hope you guys will be having summits over there because it's really interesting. But obviously, follow the money, and the money is flowing increasingly into continental Europe through Paris. You've seen that with the deals that were made by SoftBank only a few weeks ago. They went on a shopping spree here in the French ecosystem. Clearly, that wouldn't have been the case only 4 to 5 years ago. They would have come through London. They wouldn't have come straight into Paris. So coming back to your question, because I'm a Frenchman, so sometimes our Italian neighbors are quite good at this too, but we tend to elaborate a little bit too much. So I'm going to be straight to your question. There is politics, obviously. There is a strong political will by President Macron to say, hey, we might be, as Frenchmen, an industrial a nation of industries, but still, the future is digital. And that's funny because clearly you look at the German governments, they haven't done this move at all. And I could see on LinkedIn even today, some German founders, and I'm not going to name them because I don't want them to put into trouble, but we were saying, hey, look at the brilliant numbers on the Berlin scene. Just imagine how it would be if we had a government like France.
There we go.
And I think that's the only time in my life when I actually hear a German says, "Hey, look at France! It's fantastic."
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't happen in football for sure. on that note, I think today one of the things that we've been seeing is that there is definitely a race of all the different regions. We're talking now about Europe, but we can make it much wider, right, around the world of try to position the throughput of a region, a specific region, as the top in a subset of industries, but a top in the world of startups or in the world of innovation. And again, that's something that we've been tracking through data, and it's something that's probably also accelerated through the pandemic. The fact that the world is much more open. There's the digital nomads are becoming front and center. So this race of attracting talent has become more and more of a pure necessity if you want to be relevant, even economically speaking. My question there is, how important are government policies that comes from top to draw a trajectory that is not going to change in 1 year, but and maybe just to make it very practical, what have been, to your view, the major stepstones that happen in France that you would suggest other governments to follow?
I mean, this country has always been at the vanguard when it comes to actually producing fields medals. We've always had a tradition of excellence in mathematics, in physics, in chemistry, and so on and so forth. So I'm not surprised to see so many strong AI and data scientist people speaking French. We have a tradition of excellence in mathematics, so it's no surprise. And it's actually we did that a few years ago when I was still CEO at France Digital. We conducted a mapping of who are the directors of the AI centers of big tech in Silicon Valley, and especially where are they from? And it was fascinating. You could see the French flags pretty much everywhere, Indian flags also pretty much everywhere. And it was fascinating to see such a tiny country, because France is a tiny country, 60 million inhabitants, to be so overrepresented in AI centers in the Silicon Valley. So I think that's clearly something that is not going to change over the next years. The current government has invested a lot with a very strong AI strategy. They've invested a lot in research. They've invested a lot in training. So this strong tradition of excellence in AI is going to stay for sure.
Mm-hmm. So that's one element that is part of, I think one of the key one is mostly for the long term, that is education. So really building centers of excellence that a country can be representative of. How about the rest of the ecosystem? We talked about matching funds. We talked about the power of capital. And one of the activities that we have run not too long ago, was a similar summit, but in South Korea. South Korea is very well known for two things. One, the government in the last few generations have put the number of unicorns as one of the KPI of government policies, from government, not tech. And number two is to follow that KPI, the investments that follow that, that objective is significant. So for us being in Silicon Valley, we see South Korean programs being overrepresented compared to any other geographies. What kind of government? What would be your suggestions to other regions, right? If you had a point blank and full freedom to define policies that can be successful for a specific region to get to that level of success.
I have many hats, including being chairman of the European Startup Network. So I kind of see across Europe what is working, what is, I would say, less working. And what I find fascinating is that first is follow the money and fully follow the pre-seed money. We have massive amounts of VC money in Series A, Series B, growth capital. You have all the American funds. So I wouldn't say that there is a problem in terms of access to capital on a global scale at the moment. We do have a loophole, and that's why government policies need to focus very much on this, is pre-seed money. Just look at the average Series A. In France, 6 years ago, it used to be €500,000. Average Series A, €500,000. As of 2021, the average Series A is €11 million. Boom, x20 in 5 years. So clearly, the pre-seed money is harder to get because we don't have this very strong network of business angels. And if you look at the very successful ecosystems in Europe, especially across the channel, in the UK, they have this small enterprise investment scheme.
Want to share what that means?
Basically, they're offering tax rebates, massive tax rebates to business angels. The Brits hate to say that, but they are heavily subsidizing the pre-seed funding, and it's working extremely well. So if there is one policy that definitely people should look at, is this pre-seed money thing. And I don't want to come back to our debate on education and training, but clearly this is the key. If you have the good engineers, the good people, the good tech people,
money will follow.
Money will follow, entrepreneurship will follow. But it takes some time. For many years, France has been a great nation of engineers. It has been quite recent to turn these engineers into entrepreneurs. Even though in English, entrepreneur is a French word.
That's correct. And looking back, again, you've been acting into the French scene since a while. And if I have to ask you, what are the 2-3 moments looking backwards when you say, okay, we are really moving to the next level? What they could be for France? What it could be?
The 3 moments over the past year. So first was the creation of the BPI, the National Bank for Investment, the equivalent of KfW in Germany, which was extremely important because we couldn't find the VC money for many years, and so we had to invent it from scratch, and we had to
subsidize.
Have public intervention. The Brits are subsidizing pre-seed money. We had to subsidize Series A.
Yes.
So that's clearly a key moment. That's I guess that's the end of 2011 and the beginning of 2012, and that's very important to mention these dates because there was a president called Nicolas Sarkozy, and then there was another president called François Hollande. And there has been a continuity, a great national consensus around the very usefulness of this instrument, BPI.
And BPI is still acting and still has his key role.
Yeah, and it's still the same man chairing it. So there is a great deal of continuity, and they're doing a great job. So clearly, the creation of BPI. Second date. The Villani strategy, what we call the Villani strategy, with Cédric Villani is a very famous Fields Medal award winner, superstar mathematician. He's like the Lady Gaga of mathematics. The president asked him to design a national AI strategy, and he came up with something very solid. So we are probably one of the greatest national AI strategies. So it was really fantastic. And the last day.
Sorry, what is the key strategy that was so?
Basically, they have been bridging research and entrepreneurship. And when it comes to deep tech, it's so important to bridge research and entrepreneurship and
to break the silos.
Exactly. And when you look at the national AI strategies, many they have focused so much on entrepreneurship. Some of them have focused so much on fundamental research. There has been a very interesting balance in the Villani strategy. And the last date, which was quite recent, we had this very large corporate, and we have some open innovation guys listening here. So it's very important to mention that Kering is is Gucci.
Yes.
It's all these very luxurious brands. That's clearly not the company that you're expecting to do anything on innovation and startup. They put 185 million euros on the table to acquire not a startup, to acquire a stake in a startup called Vestia Collective, which became a unicorn all of a sudden. And to me, that's extremely interesting because finally we have large French corporates waking up and putting strong money on the table to acquire, to have these very strategic deals with startups. And that's clearly not a joke because if you look, and you guys are in the Silicon Valley, you look at the American corporates, they invest 6 times more in startups.
And acquire.
They do acquire compared to Europe, their European counterparts. So clearly, Kering showed the way. I think they should send a very strong signal. So next time you guys are inviting them for the summit.
Because also we're used to say no exit, no party. I remember also another moment, at least for me as a foreigner, and probably one of the first time we met, has been at the Elysee when Hollande bring the startup community, was the French tech inside the building, also to show the importance of the ecosystem. That is something that other countries have not done, or they have done years later. That for me was a sort of eye-opening event that France was really moving seriously, also in terms of they putting the reputation from Hollande, the Elysee, on the startup ecosystem. This is important. This is something that caught my eye.
That's why I'm not mentioning it as a significant date, because we have been welcome at the Élysée Palace for like so many years now. It's quite fantastic to have this very strong link between the government and the tech innovation system. However, we do have something that we need to fix, is public procurement. You know how it's so important in the US, you know how it's so important in South Korea and Israel, in France and in Germany and basically on the European continent.
Yes. Still broken.
Public procurement. So
Yeah.
if you need to invite some other open innovation guys, next time you invite the open innovation guys in the ministers, in the administrations, and you whip them until they sign a contract with the startup.
Might take a while.
Okay, Alberto, we have time for one more question. Do you want
Sure.
to, who was the... Well, I have one maybe that is thinking about the future. What do you think is the best that can happen to an ecosystem like France? So maybe what is your hope that can happen, being one of the major activists in that space?
Let's stop talking about valuation. Let's start talking about purpose. Like, I mean, I love when people are creating great scale-ups and great unicorns and so on and so forth, but what for? And I do believe that we have a very specific way of doing tech on the European continent compared to the Americans and the Chinese. And if you just look at the tech for good startups, the tech for good scale-ups, you find that most of the tech for good unicorns, they're actually on the European continent. And I don't think that's a surprise, because as Europeans, we are going to ask ourselves some questions that Chinese and Americans wouldn't even care about. For instance, if I look at one of the strongest French unicorns, it's called Back Market. It's a platform for refurbished iPhones and so on and so forth. In the US, who is going to refurbish an iPhone? You buy a new one and that's it. In Europe, we care about the environment, and so we are going to produce, I would say, unicorn with a purpose. And I think that's the right way to do so.
Yeah, it looks pops to my mind. Winted from Latvia.
Exactly.
Again, yes, that might be probably one of the ingredients that we Europeans can put in the startup cake, assuming that we're able to make this cake a bit more larger and more relevant. So last question from me is, looking at Europe, broader Europe, not just France, what should be the potential European move for making the European ecosystem working as one, assuming that it might exist?
The European Commission, they put 750 billion euros on the table as a recovery plan. And you have basically 20% out of it that is clearly earmarked for the digital transformation. So that's 150 billion on the table. My question is, how much is going to end up in the pockets of startups? And I'm very afraid that this money is going to end up in the pockets of basically companies that are able to answer all these calls and Brussels shenanigans. One very, very key thing is, can we get at least half of these 150 billion to end up in the coffers of our European startups? If we can do that, we're going to kickstart the French, the German, the Italian, the Estonian startup ecosystem so hard, because it's not about fundraising. I like people when they make revenues too, and if we can get revenues from public procurement, that would be extremely helpful.
Yes, also because of looking at some our latest statistics, typically for an ecosystem, the amount of capital invested turn into revenue approximately in 3 to 5 years. So again, any dollar or any euro that you put into a startup in 3 to 5 years will be able to produce €1 of revenue. That is all money that will come back.
Yeah.
And so
let's sell products. Let's sell products instead of just fundraising. I think that's the key. And the Americans and the South Koreans and the Israelis, they have absolutely no problem with that. I mean, look at the money they're putting in innovative public procurement in their own startups. It's not even a free market anymore.
No, but sometimes we are able to complicate our lives in a magnificent way. And so
that's a shame.
Perfect.
I think we're out of time, but I think that was a perfect way to finish the afternoon. So thanks for your insights, and we'll look forward to witnessing what is next for the French ecosystem. So thanks again, and thanks everybody. See you next time.
Thank you.